There have been rumors. There's been talk. There's been a lot of discussion surrounding Michigan, whether it's about the cheating scandal, whether it's about disappointing in 2024. There's just been a lot of talk, a lot of, you could even say, drama about Michigan. In large part, I think that term is accurate. I think a lot of it is drama. I just want to get this question out of the way because it's been asked, and I want to at least, talk about Michigan before the whole hearing that takes place in early June, which a lot of people who have talked about Michigan are also talking about, often in reference to. This question is from Eric, actually an Indiana fan, and he asks, does Sherrone Moore survive the season at Michigan? If you want to ask your own question and have it turned into a video, just click the Discord server link via the video description. You'll join the Discord server automatically and it's free. And then navigate to the YouTube mailbox channel and type in a question, and I will make a video out of it, especially since it's this early in the preseason. I'll make it pretty easy to make a video out of it before September, before late August when the season kicks off. Sherrone Moore's record, official record at Michigan, is 9-5, 1 win in 23, 8-5 record in 2024, with a 5-4 record, should say 5-4, not 4-5, in Big Ten Conference play, and he has a 1-2 record versus top 10 teams. And by that I mean in terms of like AP standing. So lost to Texas and Oregon last year, but beat Ohio State. In terms of the power ratings, he went 2-2 in top 10 games, lost to Texas and Oregon, but beat Alabama and Ohio State, who were top 10 in FPI. It's a fascinating question, whether he survives the season or not. My opinion with the whole punishments that Michigan will receive, I haven't been very public about it, per se, because I just kind of want to wait. And because there's a lot of these accounts who are insisting that I'm like this super biased pro-Michigan person, which is pretty hilarious because I've picked these often are, sadly, Ohio State accounts. And I say sadly because Ohio State's a wonderful fan base. A lot of them are sadly Ohio State accounts. And they accuse me of being biased despite the fact that I've picked Ohio State to beat Michigan 3 out of their past 4 matchups. And Ohio State's been 0-4 with their staff in at least 2 of the matchups, kind of acting like idiots in regards to the game. So that, I just want to get that out of the way. That's stupid. But I don't want them, like, because they will, this specific type of person will be snowballing in my mentions or the mentions of any show that didn't say that Michigan would get destroyed. So that's part of the reason why I've been ignoring it, because it's just not fun. It's boring. And the insinuation is that if Michigan's terrible, well, they'll never beat Ohio State, which is hilarious because guess who beat Ohio State last year when they were pretty pathetic? Oh, Michigan. Nebraska also did as well. Just to point that out. But since you asked, Eric, I am going to give an answer and say that as of right now, I think that what the NCAA will do, the only punishment that they will give out that I think will have a tangible effect on Michigan is in regards to Sherrone Moore. This is staying consistent with what Pete Thamel said a year ago, and Pete Thamel's plugged in. I have no idea how anyone can think that certain smaller accounts on Twitter somehow know more than Pete Thamel does. If those accounts are being fed information, guess who else is being fed information? Well, Pete Thamel. Because Pete Thamel is a bigger audience, he can make more money off of this. It's the same thing with Josh Pate. It's the same with others. Like, it's way too convenient for specific accounts of Michigan's rivals to know everything about the sign stealing scandal. It's like Michigan accounts saying they know everything about the Nassar scandal or about Michigan State's notice of allegations. Like, you look at that and you think, well, geez, you totally don't have any incentive to say that your rival's going to get destroyed and they'll never beat you again. It's just my thoughts. So in consistency of what Pate, who's right on a lot of things, and on Thamel, who's even more correct on a lot of things, in consistency with what they say, I think that Michigan will receive some type of punishment. I think that for sure They deserve to receive some type of punishment. I mean, they cheated after all. It's like the same thing with Jim Tressel in Ohio State in Tattoo-Gate and in 2010, 2011. I thought their punishment was a bit too extreme. You got Tressel to resign. You had the awful 2011 season. A lot of players left that, didn't have to leave because they were suspended. And I think that was kind of, in hindsight, I guess good enough of a punishment for Ohio State. I think the postseason ban was the excessive part of that whole punishment, especially with the new staff, with Urban Meyer and, Tom Herman, Mike Vrabel, Luke Fickell remained, but, one remaining staffer from the prior staff is what it is. It was a new staff. A lot of the players who played in 2012 were not receiving significant playing time or even played in 2010 or while the whole Tattoo-Gate thing was going on. Postseason ban was just stupid. Shouldn't have happened. NCAA should probably apologize to Ohio State for that whole thing. With Michigan, I'm kind of thinking in the realm that, Michigan lost a lot of their staffers. They did, like Jim Harbaugh. OC Sherrone Moore of that team is still the head coach, but everyone else is basically gone. And they went 7-5 last year. A lot of their talent from the 21 to 23 seasons is gone. I don't know what Michigan should receive beyond the punishment of probably, in an ideal sense of in an ideal world, maybe you take away some scholarships from Michigan and give it to some other schools. But in the NIL era, that's basically nothing. So I don't know what other punishment would be appropriate otherwise than maybe you give Sherrone Moore more games where he's suspended, which, look, makes sense, especially since he was in contact with Stallions, and if they discover that, he was deeply involved, well, yeah, that's appropriate. And if he was deeply involved and lied about it, then he should be fired, because you can't lead, you can't be dishonest. You just can't. Honestly. That's just wrong. To be involved in something that deep and then lie about it to the authority should result in that. But that's just the should. We haven't even gotten to what will or what could happen. I'm hearing people say they'll restrict Michigan's NIL. That's not going to hold up in court, because then you're restricting individual athletes' ability to earn money because the school they go to. How is it fair to restrict Bryce Underwood's NIL deal because of actions that he didn't even commit, or that actions that took place while he was a junior in high school? That would be not just unfair, it wouldn't hold up in court. So anyone saying that is probably not objective or not fully thinking it through. There's also the idea that Michigan will receive a multi-year postseason ban. Well, Ohio State only received a 1-year postseason ban, and they had ineligible players. Michigan didn't have ineligible players. Ineligible players typically result in postseason bans. Tennessee, for example, had ineligible players under Jeremy Pruitt. They had 18 level 1 violations to Michigan's 6. Tennessee basically had to vacate wins, which typically is associated with ineligible players. They didn't receive a postseason ban, and things moved along. They had some severe scholarship limitations in year 1, but again, with the NIL era, after that year 1, that you don't even notice it. You don't even see it with Tennessee, that they're operating with 83 scholarships instead of 85. So what will happen versus what should happen will probably be different things. Ultimately, as to what will happen, I can't exactly give a prediction other than the fact that Michigan will not receive more than a 1-year postseason ban. And I'm only saying that because in case there's that 0.5% chance that some of the accounts that are rather biased say otherwise, that I can't give them the credit, then I won't have to give them the credit of I was wrong and they were right. Don't want to do that. Not in the interest of giving rather facetious individuals good standing. Not in the interest of doing that at all. So in the very conservative prediction, worst case scenario for Michigan's probably a 1-year postseason ban and or Sherrone Moore's fired. And even then, I don't know if they'd show cause him 2 months before the season kicked off. That would be unprecedented. So I'd actually say worst case scenario is probably postseason ban and suspended during games. And they'll probably do one or the other. Maybe I'm wrong, but intuitively I think to myself that what Michigan's doing here by self-imposing penalties is they're kind of urinating on the NCAA's leg, in the sense that that's not a good way to appease them. You've been fighting them tooth and nail, and then you say we're going to self-impose like the weakest penalties in the world, basically a 1 week recruiting restriction, which is just pathetic. It's pathetic not in the sense that Michigan shouldn't receive any punishment at all. It's pathetic in the sense that you're not punishing yourself. You're just giving the illusion that you're punishing yourself. And then as for the 2 games in the fall, what are you doing? You're choosing the games in which you're suspended. How isn't that going to make the NCAA even angrier with you? Oh, we're going to self-suspend for Central Michigan and Nebraska, but we're going to have our head coach for the first 2 weeks and then every game after that. Like, what? What? That doesn't make sense to me. And either what that will result in is that will result in the NCAA leveraging harsher penalties, because honestly, that's basically Michigan, in my mind, giving the bird to the NCAA. If you're trying to appease the NCAA because they have mass power over you, and maybe my intuition is wrong, you'd suspend yourself for the maximum amount of games you could, like 4 or maybe even 6. And then, like, you'd institute harsher recruiting penalties. If you were getting the death penalty, like 2-year postseason ban, it's worth suspending your head coach for way more games than 2 and instituting harsher penalties. And maybe, Sherrone Moore resigns or something to prevent that from happening because the school forces him to, for example, rather than basically not being able to compete for titles at all, and even for Big Ten championships for 2 years. That's just my thought. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'm open to the possibility of being wrong there. It's why I said there is that slight percent chance that, yeah, Michigan doesn't participate in the postseason, or they have, a fine that actually means something, or maybe Moore gets show caused, or, maybe somehow, some way, yeah, NIL's restricted, even though but that wouldn't hold up in court. The point I'm trying to make is Michigan, more likely than not, won't fire Sherrone Moore. Sherrone Moore won't be let go due to something relating to the sign stealing scandal, to the cheating scandal. What's more likely than that, I think, is that Michigan disappoints again and they realize Moore isn't the guy and they fire him. Michigan has staffing questions. They're starting a true freshman quarterback. They lost a bunch of studs on defense. People who talk to me or listen to the show often know I'm not very high on Michigan's staff, and I just think that, look, Michigan could go 7-5 this year. They could go 6-6. I think it's more likely they go 7-5, by the way, under their win total by 1.5 wins than they receive like a type of ban, like postseason ban or a show cause that would really affect their program's ceiling for a year. Not 2 years, like just a year. I think 7-5 is more likely than that. 6-6 might be more likely than that. I think Michigan could even go 6-6. I mean, what the staff did last year was an atrocity for the first part. They were saved by Dominic Zvada and an epic defense in terms of roster talent. The coaching defensively was subpar for the first half of the year. The offensive coaching was subpar for the whole season. Sherrone Moore couldn't manage timeouts properly, didn't know specific college football rules that Dan Lanning, for example, abused to help Oregon pull away in that game. And look, they won a lot of close games too. Now, they lost a lot. They lost some close games like Illinois, Washington, Indiana. But Ohio State and Alabama were close wins. I mean, USC was a close win. Minnesota shouldn't have been close, but at the end of the day, it was. And Michigan needed, some weird stuff with an onside kick to not have to win in the final second of the game. So Michigan could go, as I've said earlier, 12-0. They could also go 7-5, 6-6. And if Michigan goes any less than, in my mind, 10-2 or maybe 9-3, season's an absolute failure. If they go 7-5 again, yes, Moore should be fired because this team should be better than last year's team with the far better quarterback play, with all that's returning on the O-line and at linebacker, at DB, with the upgrades made to the running back room, with the staff continuity, with a good incoming recruiting class, with Underwood and maybe a few other true freshmen contribute in good ways. And with Zvada coming back, and with an easier schedule where the only preseason surefire top 10 team you're going to be playing is Ohio State. And last year you played Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, and Indiana ended up being top 10. So will Sherrone Moore survive the season at Michigan? I'm going to say yes, but it's not like absolute confidence that he will. Again, maybe I am wrong about my intuition with the whole punishments for the cheating. I will say I think it's more likely Moore gets show cause than the postseason ban happens because he was involved in some way or another. Like, I don't know if he was in cahoots totally with Stallions. Likelihood says to a certain degree he probably was, but just the association with that isn't good, and that's something that the NCAA could totally leverage, I think, in a more real way than suspending them from postseason play when they don't even control the postseason. The college football playoff does. And if the college football playoff wanted to keep Michigan out of its system, they would have kept him out in 2023 when, like, all the evidence showed they cheated. They would have said, nope, you're not coming into our playoffs. And they can say that because they're their own organization in business. But the NCAA doesn't have control over that. The Big Ten didn't, and the Big Ten took immediate action, which was good and deserved on their part. So I'm going to say probably 8 out of 10 confidence that Sherrone Moore survives the season. That remaining 2 mostly being if he goes 7-5 again, which is a possibility. And at that point, I think a move would be made because his buyout's super low. And he's not viewed as a savior of Michigan football like Harbaugh was when he was hired, or that Harbaugh was viewed as his time ended at Michigan. Moore's just a guy who Michigan fans and Michigan elite and brass want to succeed, but ultimately if he gets in the way and there's grumblings from Underwood and grumblings from talent on defense and Michigan's recruiting class and the team just doesn't look good, well, they'll fire him and they'll hire someone else more likely than not. So that's my answer to your question, Eric. Very long-winded. I don't think Moore will get fired due to anything relating to the scandal. If he does, it'd certainly be unprecedented, but again, maybe I'm wrong. I think more likely than not, if he doesn't survive the year, it's due to having a poor performance, because he is not one of the best head coaches in the Big Ten or even the country, not even close. He has a lot to prove there. And this team did lose NFL talent. They did. And starting a true freshman quarterback, as we saw with Nebraska last year, doesn't always earn you the Trevor Lawrence experience. So that's my answer to your question. I think Sherrone Moore will stay beyond 2025, but there is a chance, given what happened last year, that yes, he could be fired.